Hello, friends. Welcome to Storycraft. On this channel, you will enjoy world top stories. Let's view the video. The warrior who fought in every world war. The boy soldier of 1914, the drums of war. Echo through Europe. Europe was a powder keg in 1914. Alliances crumbled and borders ignited with rage. In a quiet French village, 17-year-old Adrien Moreau listened to whispers of war grow louder. He had never fired a gun, but he felt the pull, the magnetic tug of duty, pride, and something else. A hunger to be part of something greater than himself. His father, a veteran of the Franco-Prussian War, tried to stop him, but Adrien had already made up his mind. Forging documents, faking age too young to enlist legally, Adrien forged papers with the help of his older cousin, a printer in Lyon. He changed his birth year from 1897 to 1895, giving him the 2 years he needed to cross the line into manhood in the eyes of the military. The recruiter never looked twice. France needed bodies, and Adrien had the eyes of a fighter. Within weeks, he was in uniform, marching with men twice his age into the unknown. Baptism by fire in the trenches. His first battlefield was the Marne. Nothing could have prepared him for the chaos. Shells screamed across the sky like angry gods. The ground shook with each explosion, and men cried out in languages that blurred in fear. Adrien fired his first shot with trembling hands. He missed, but by the end of the week, he didn't. He became a ghost in the mud, silent, efficient, and unseen. The boy who had never known pain learned to sleep among the dead. A medal for a ghost at Verdun, Adrien's company was nearly wiped out. He ran messages under gunfire, carried wounded men on his back, and held a line with only 6 bullets and a bayonet. For his courage, he was awarded the Croix de Guerre. But he never bragged. He buried the medal in his coat pocket, worn close to the heart he thought had stopped beating long ago. To him, it wasn't valor, it was survival. The eyes that never aged. By the end of World War I, Adrien had seen more death than most see in a lifetime. But something was different. He didn't age. At 21, he looked 17. Doctors whispered behind clipboards. Friends asked questions. He ignored them all. Deep down, Adrien felt a strange shift inside him, as if time had forgotten to touch him. As peace returned to Europe, Adrien disappeared from the records, a war hero turned myth, waiting for the next fire to rise. Through the fire of World War II, the man who didn't age in 1939, as Europe again stood on the brink of chaos, Adrien Moreau walked the streets of Paris looking just as he had in 1918. 2 decades had passed, yet his reflection hadn't changed. The same sharp jaw, the same storm-gray eyes, the same youthful frame. Friends had aged, buried loved ones, started families, but Adrien remained a ghost in a world moving forward. Whispers followed him, rumors spread. He vanished once more, just as the drums of war began to beat louder. Another war, another uniform. When Germany invaded Poland, Adrien surfaced in Marseille under a new name, Henri Duval. The recruiters laughed at his youthful face until he calmly recited tactics from Verdun and named officers who had long since died. One grizzled veteran recognized him and said nothing. Adrien was enlisted without question. France needed warriors, and he was more than ready. Lightning strikes across France as Nazi tanks roared through the Ardennes. Adrien's unit was sent to hold a collapsing line near Sedan. He led a squad into forests thick with enemy scouts, ambushing patrols and laying mines in silence. His knowledge of warfare was uncanny. He predicted movements before maps confirmed them. To his comrades, he was either blessed or cursed. They followed him into hell without hesitation. The fall and the fire Paris fell. France broke. Adrian refused to surrender. He joined the resistance, working under candlelight in cellars and barns. He moved through the night like smoke, sabotaging rail lines, rescuing captured operatives, and delivering coded messages across enemy checkpoints. The Gestapo began hunting a man they called Le Fantôme, the Ghost. His real name was long forgotten. Only legends remained. The assassin in the fog in 1943, Adrian was tasked with eliminating a high-ranking SS officer in Lyon. Disguised as a janitor, he entered the officer's residence through a sewer grate. The blade he carried was the same bayonet from the Great War, now worn smooth by time. One strike, silent, precise, and the mission was done. He disappeared into the fog as alarms rang through the city. No one ever saw the killer's face. The invasion and redemption. When Allied forces landed in Normandy, Adrian emerged from the shadows to guide American troops through ruined French villages. He knew every hill, every river bend, every old Roman road buried beneath the mud. He wore no medals, held no rank, but generals listened when he spoke. On D-Day +5, he dragged a wounded lieutenant out of a burning truck under enemy fire, saving a man who would one day call him immortal. The victory that brought no peace by 1945, the world celebrated victory. But Adrian didn't smile. He stood among ruins, staring into the smoke of a second war that had taken millions. The boy soldier of 1914 had survived another apocalypse. Yet again, he hadn't aged. He slipped away before the photographs and parades. Some said they saw him walking toward the mountains. Others swore he took the last train out of Paris. One thing was certain, war would come again, and so would he. The Cold War shadows and secret battles. The Phantom in post-war Berlin. Berlin was a city split in two, carved by ideology and barbed wire. In the shadow of the crumbling Reichstag, Adrian Moreau walked unnoticed among soldiers, spies, and survivors. Now using the name Victor Lemaire, he lived in a small apartment near Checkpoint Charlie, posing as a French translator. But he was no civilian. Behind locked doors, he passed secrets between factions, never choosing a side, only preventing another global fire from igniting. Recruited by the unseen. In 1947, a man from the newly formed CIA approached him in a smoky Berlin cafe. The American wore a trench coat, spoke fluent French, and knew Adrian's true age. "We've been watching you," he said. "You don't age, you don't die. We could use someone like you." Adrian didn't answer, but he didn't walk away either. A week later, he was in Washington, D.C., undergoing silent clearance as Agent Eclipse. Ghost Wars and Black Files. Under aliases known only to the highest levels of intelligence, Adrian fought in wars the public never knew. He trained resistance fighters in Hungary during the 1956 revolution. He smuggled defectors out of East Berlin hidden in hollowed-out speaker cabinets. He sabotaged Soviet supply routes in Afghanistan long before the world paid attention. Each mission was off the books. No records, no recognition. Only whispers of a man who never missed, never aged, and never left a trail. Operation Iron Silence. In 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, Adrian was embedded in Havana under the name Santiago de la Croix. He delivered classified images of nuclear, Missile sites to American contacts just days before the world stood on the edge of annihilation. When the crisis ended, the president received the intel, but never knew the face behind it. Adrian was already gone, blending into the back streets of Bogota, waiting for the next code word to activate him. The Vietnam Dilemma. By 1968, Adrian was deep in the jungles of Vietnam, advising covert units under the code name Whisper. He spoke little, fought hard, and vanished before the gunfire faded. Soldiers swore he could move through trees without a sound. Legends of a French ghost saving platoons from ambushes spread through camps like wildfire. His weapon of choice remained the same, his century-old bayonet, polished and sharp, a symbol of endless war. The KGB's most wanted. The Soviets were not blind. Adrian's face appeared in grainy surveillance from too many locations: Berlin, Budapest, Saigon, Tehran. Always the same face, unchanged. The KGB began an investigation. They called him the Eternal Man. Files marked top-secret detailed sightings, fingerprints, and testimonies. None of it made sense. The youngest man in World War I was still fighting like a ghost of vengeance. Orders were given, capture or eliminate, but no one ever succeeded. Adrian always slipped through the cracks. The silence before the storm. As the 1970s waned, Adrian retreated to a quiet village in northern Norway, hidden by forests and snow. He watched the world through a radio, heard whispers of tension rising again, and waited. Though the battles were colder, the fire in his blood never dimmed. He knew war was never truly over. It only slept, and when it woke again, he would be ready. The Desert Storm and the New Age of War. The call from the sand in 1990, the world once again braced for conflict. Iraq had invaded Kuwait, and coalition forces began to mobilize. Adrian Moreau, still looking no older than 30, listened to the news from a dusty radio in a Turkish border town. He didn't hesitate. A call came from a contact in the CIA. The message was brief. "We need Eclipse." War had entered a new era: satellites, stealth bombers, and laser-guided bombs, but Adrian was still relevant. Because wars may evolve, but soldiers like him remain eternal. Embedded in the sands of Kuwait. Operating under the alias David Ramirez, Adrian joined a joint special operations unit as a tactical advisor. He was inserted behind enemy lines, days before the official ground invasion. His mission: identify hidden bunkers, disrupt Iraqi supply chains, and pass intel to coalition strike teams. He moved through the desert at night, blending with Bedouin traders and disappearing before sunrise. He didn't need GPS. He trusted the stars. Ghost in the storm. When the U.S.-led offensive began, Adrian was already 3 days ahead of the first tanks. In the dead of night, he neutralized communications outposts, redirected convoys into ambushes, and lit flares that called down precision strikes. American soldiers started talking about the Desert Ghost, a man in a sand-colored cloak who saved squads from certain death, then vanished like wind over dunes. They said he never used a radio, but always knew where to be. The Chemical Nightmare. Near Basra, Adrian uncovered an abandoned chemical weapons facility. Inside, the air stank of ammonia and something far worse. In a hidden vault, he found blueprints, labeled in Cyrillic. evidence of Soviet involvement. As he prepared to leave, he was ambushed by Iraqi Republican Guard soldiers. Outnumbered, he fought with brutal precision, his rifle, his knife, his bare hands. One survivor crawled away, whispering in terror about a man who couldn't die. Operation Phantom Gate. As Baghdad's defenses fell, Adrian participated in a final covert mission, extracting an Iraqi scientist with knowledge of biological warfare. Posing as an arms dealer, he infiltrated the scientist's estate during a blackout. With the city in chaos, Adrian walked the man out disguised as a medic through checkpoints manned by confused and terrified soldiers. When the dust settled, the scientist was in U.S. custody, and Adrian was already en route to Morocco, mission complete. The questions return. Back at a secure base in Riyadh, a young American intelligence officer noticed something strange. Adrian's face matched old photos from World War II, and even one from 1918, nearly identical. She confronted him. He didn't deny it. He simply said, "Some warriors are cursed to serve every war." She said nothing more. The file was sealed and marked classified, eyes only. Walking away again. When the Gulf War ended, Adrian disappeared once more. No medals, no headlines, only rumors. Some said he had died in the desert. Others swore they saw him walking alone across the Sinai Peninsula. Yet those who had fought beside him knew the truth. He never left. He only waited, because Adrian Moreau had come to accept what he truly was. A soldier stitched into time, drawn to every battlefield the world would ever know. The final war. That never ends. A new kind of battlefield. In the early 2000s, war changed again. Cities became war zones, drones filled the skies, and battles were live-streamed. Adrian Moreau, now operating under the name Elias Verne, reappeared in Kabul, wearing civilian clothes, but walking like a soldier. No one knew his age, only that. He moved like a ghost and struck like a storm. He wasn't part of any official unit, but special forces teams welcomed him into missions without question. They sensed something ancient in his silence. The War on Terror's Shadow Blade. Adrian was deployed on missions no one else wanted. Hostage rescues in the mountains of Tora Bora, sabotage operations deep inside insurgent tunnels, intelligence, drops in cities crawling with double agents. He never used modern weapons if he could help it. Instead, he still carried that same century-old bayonet. He said it reminded the world who started this. The unkillable witness. Years passed. He saw new soldiers die and younger replacements come. He stayed the same. A medic once asked him why he fought if he never seemed to die. Adrian replied, "Because I remember every war, and forgetting is worse." When a drone strike missed its target, Adrian walked through the wreckage and pulled out a child still alive. That photo, though blurred, became famous, yet no one could identify the man. The warrior without a grave. By the 2020s, Adrian was a myth among soldiers, spoken of in hushed tones, credited with impossible saves. Then, just as always, he vanished. No death, no record. But in every war zone, rumors still spread, of a man who never aged, never rested, and who would appear again. When the next great war came calling. Thanks for watching. Subscribe our channel Storycraft for more interesting videos.